direction, unfortunately. That might end up that way, but yeah. I really feel that I still hold out hope for us. I believe, like when I hear your voices, gentlemen, and it does make my heart feel better about, the prospects of us having a better understanding about this. And it's not going to be without its challenges. We're aware of that. It's not going to be without, if we have to keep an open mind if we're going to learn. If we are too fearful about it, you're going to close your mind to learning something that's so complex and so diverse. So it's really the ability of individuals to have that courage, to stretch their mind, to ask new questions, to explore new realities before we get to that point in time where we can feel more comfortable with what's unfolding. I believe we're going to have a better relationship with them, but it's probably not going to be for some time.
Recently, just chucking it back to you, regarding C.B. Scott Jones. He wrote an article in Nexus magazine about China leading the world regarding UFO disclosure. I've grave misgivings about it. I don't know what you and Jeffrey think of that one, but I've grave misgivings. Well, there again, I've grave misgivings about America and Britain, but China seems an odd country in is perception to lead the world on UFO disclosure. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Well, I just kind of threw that into the book because I wanted to really kind of poke the governments and say, if you don't do something, somebody else will. And the way I look at it is that in some way China doesn't actually have to worry about some of the political ramifications for announcing that the phenomenon is real, as, let's say, Obama would have to worry about. And they have much more control over the general population and some of the media outlets and how they do things in China than they do in other countries. And not only that, China is really trying to set itself apart. They're trying to show the world that they can lead the world, and they have the technology to do so. In fact, just recently they're announcing their forays into space. And so all of these things are really going to entice China, if they are aware of the UFO phenomenon, to maybe address it in a way that they can, put their name in the history as being the very first country in the federal government to acknowledge the existence of the UFO phenomenon and extraterrestrial presence here. But again, it's yet to be seen whether or not there's a global conspiracy about keeping this information quiet from the general population, and China's aware of that. I don't know. But it would be, again, I think China would be tempted at some point in time maybe to step forward and announce it just to get their name in the history books with very little political outfall from their point. So that's really what I was just putting forward.
Yeah, you think there is a government out there in a particular nation that's actually speaking to them and keeping it quiet? I mean, do you think that scenario could be possible?
It's possible. It's possible. I think that Russia and the U.S. have had some conversations with respect to keeping this information. So when you look at all the space-faring nations, and maybe the nuclear-powered nations and the space-faring nations, I think are the most likely organizations or nations that are talking with each other about the UFO phenomena and trying to keep it under wraps for the general population. So that's my feeling on it. But whether or not, I'm pretty sure some nations are doing it. Which ones are doing it and which ones aren't, I really don't know.
Alrighty, well, we're down to about 10 minutes. I'm looking through my Joker cards here and seeing what we haven't talked about. So, Jim, what is your website about? Is it a specific organization? It's AUFOSG.com?
Correct. Yeah, it's really just a website that I put together. I'm really not, don't have a large affiliation of people or anything like that. It's just a site that I put together to try and share some information on the subject and not have people within my geographical area report UFO sightings, and then go on to report that to a Canadian location so that we can produce reports of UFO sightings throughout Canada. So actually Canada has a fairly detailed and a fairly good working organization with respect to reporting UFO sightings nationally. So I'm just part of that larger organization that does that.
Cool. Yeah, it's refreshing to hear a positive view on UFOs and ETs, because lately I've interviewed Timothy Beckley on his book about Evil Empire and the ultra-terrestrials. Who else? Art Greenfield. He has a pretty morbid view on the reptilians using us as a food source. So it's not... this was on Examiner. I've interviewed a lot of people that have had some pretty bland, dark kind of situations when it comes to extraterrestrials, which, I don't totally agree with that perspective. I definitely, like I said before, that, sure, there could be some factions that are, crazy, just like there's crazy people. But I think there's a mixture. I think it's good to accept that there's a balance. Just like there's good and evil, there's going to be good and evil other beings. There's going to be some beings that don't care about us, and there's going to be some that do. And,